Homeschooling isn't always picture perfect. Welcome to Homeschooling with Dr. B, where we'll help you find solutions to the challenges you face and celebrate your successes with you. Now, please welcome your host, Dr. B.
Welcome, my tenacious homeschool tribe. Today we're going to be talking about socialization. But first, let's thank our sponsor. This podcast episode is brought to you by our friends at Certainty. Their reusable replacement electrode patches help you leave pain-free. And as an older mom with bad knees, trust you me, they help a lot. Check them out at certainty.com. Use the code OMB15OFF for an additional 15% off your purchase. Now, believe it or not, after homeschooling for 6 years, and now having been convinced by my twins to continue homeschooling for another 4 years, what I have found to be the most often asked question of me is, how will you socialize the kids? Not what subjects are you going to be teaching? Are you sure you're capable of teaching those subjects? Nope, none of those. Question most homeschooling families face over and over again is, how would you socialize the kids? So let's unload that. What exactly is socialization? Why do people focus so much on it? And is socialization really a problem for homeschoolers? So socialization sounds like such a big word, right? What really is socialization? Well, it's really nothing more than the process that allows an individual to learn the values, the language, the culture, the behavior, the social norms, and skills that will allow them to function in their community. Now, what most people don't seem to realize is that socialization actually begins at home. It's us as parents that teach our children a lot of their attitudes, their values, what we believe is appropriate or inappropriate actions. We do a lot of that work. Now, we didn't stop sending our kids to school or to a traditional school system because we didn't agree with the socialization process there. But we did find in our time that our kids were there that sometimes what they were taught in school didn't sync what we believe was important as a family. But there is no question that in our society, the school system is a strong socialization component or factor. So why do people focus so much on the socialization of homeschooled children? Well, people think that children need to go to a traditional school setting, a traditional educational setting, to learn how to be social. But kids already know how to be social by the time they get to school. And people also believe that homeschoolers are sheltered from the normal pressures of life. But that means that we're making the argument that the culture in a school is normal. And really, it's something relatively new in society. This idea of taking children based on age groups, lumping them together for a long part of the day, and having them develop their values and attitudes outside of the family home. That's relatively modern concept of society. But it's true. Homeschoolers are not going to be taken out of the home and spend 7 hours of the day with just kids their age. Probably not going to experience bullying to the same degree. And they're probably going to get a lot more individualization and a lot more attention than a child that's going to a traditional educational setting. So back to the question, is socialization really a problem for homeschoolers? Studies don't seem to indicate that. They don't bear that out. Homeschoolers tend to outperform same-age public school peers in both academics and social skills. Now, there's a lot of people that argue that that's not possible, but the studies have found this to be consistent. So why is it that the children that everybody's worried are not getting enough socialization turn out to be so good at it? Well, because homeschool communities can be incredibly active. Now, it does depend on location. In the Caribbean, when I first started out 4 years ago, there wasn't a strong homeschool community where I lived. That's not the case anymore. It's still a little bit of a challenge for the older kids, but you're going to find that older kids are a little bit challenging just because they're no longer interested in being set up on play dates. They can create their own social groups. In fact, they want to. But you can find this very active homeschool community in most cities, in most states. Again, it's a little more challenging in the rural areas than it is in the urban areas. But there's an incredible amount of resources out there. One of the ones that's easiest and the most helpful and you're really familiar with is Facebook. If you Facebook homeschooling, homeschoolers, homeschool groups, you're going to have more groups available to you than you can actually join or you're interested in joining. Meetup is another excellent resource. My goodness, you'll find groups that are 1,000 families strong. It really depends on the area and your willingness to go to these meetup places. There's homeschool co-ops where people meet 1 day at a week, 2 days at a week, meet to learn one subject, meet to learn another subject. The co-ops can be small, just a few kids, or large, several hundred kids. It really depends on what's available in your area. And of course, most of us have extracurricular activities in our area. My kids have been in theater, music lessons, such as piano, ukulele, guitar. More recently, we're expressing an interest in violin. They have also been involved in art classes, art shows. I don't remember if I said musical theater, but they are really involved in musical theater. You can also involve your children in bands, choirs, and of course, sports. My children have been in soccer, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, and one of my daughters is currently very involved in volleyball. I have another child that's currently interested in baseball. Summer camps. My kids have attended so many summer camps. We lived in Florida near Cape Canaveral, so they've been to summer camps at the Space Center, gymnastic summer camps. Oh my goodness. Theater summer camps, musical summer camps, dance summer camps. And of course, there's also sports camps. There's a lot of available things. Volunteer groups. My kids haven't done so much of that, in part because we're such a busy family. We travel a lot and we're an entrepreneurial family. So we have a lot of business to take care of during any given time. But now they're hitting high school and next year they're all starting to make plans to volunteer. Our goal is for each child to volunteer 100 hours per high school year and in different areas, not the same thing, so that it exposes them to different parts of our community. Churches have a lot of groups. And when the kids were younger, they used to really enjoy doing Bible summer camp. They're no longer interested in that. But as young kids, they did do it quite a bit. And of course, play dates. Now, here's something amazing. When we lived in Michigan and the kids went to private school, we did make some friends through the kids' schools. But the primary focus was the specific school and the connection that school had to a specific church. So their exposure was limited and the friendships were based on that. When we moved to Florida and the kids were going to private school, it was a different situation there. The school was not connected to a church, which was perfectly acceptable for us. But even though it was a private school, it was not community-based, meaning people were traveling for 30, 40 minutes to get to that school. So at the end of the day, the parents were not really interested in having play dates after school because they still had to travel 30, 40 minutes back home. They were tired from work. So we didn't make a lot of friends there. And some of the friends the kids make, our values didn't exactly mesh, or we didn't really want them to be exposed to certain things. So we were really struggling with that. But when we became part of the homeschool community here in Florida, it's such a large, diverse community that even within one given group, we were able to find our niche. And we participated in a lot of groups, are participating in a lot of groups. In the Caribbean is a little bit different. We are more limited, but there's still a lot of opportunities to socialize. Now, here's something very interesting. I know that there's some of you out there thinking, but I'm an introvert. So am I. I'm a major introvert. If I didn't see anybody, if I didn't get to socialize for anybody for the week, I'd be a happy human being. I find socialization to be very draining. But my overall experience in the homeschool community has been very positive because guess what? There's a lot of people like me. They don't necessarily go to these social opportunities for themselves, but they do for their kids. And then you find like-minded individuals. Moms that are like, this is intimidating. This is really hard. I need to find some way to deal with it. I originally started by burying myself in a book. And then slowly I made a couple of friends in one group. I made a couple of friends in another group. People that I was comfortable socializing with. And frankly, they tended to be people that were introverted like me. I have to admit that the process of creating this social community for my kids actually helped me improve my social skills and help me with my social anxiety. Nevertheless, as much as they socialize, because I live in a house of social butterflies, I still enjoy my time alone more. So it's gotten easier. It doesn't mean that I've gone against my nature and I forced myself into the situation. And it's definitely getting easier in that the kids are getting older and now they're setting up their own meetups. And I've become more of the facilitator. I no longer have to be there all of the time as I had to when they were younger. But not just the kids, our family has made some great friends because of homeschooling. You find these like-minded individuals or sometimes individuals that are completely different than you, but you really connect. And we've done a lot of traveling and experiencing of different activities with our homeschool friends. I mean, we traveled with one of the homeschool families to DC. We have had several families that had joined us in our small condo in Florida so that the kids could go to summer camps together, so that they could go to concerts together and different other opportunities. If you give homeschoolers an opportunity, you actually get to meet these kids. You're going to find out that they tend to have more actual real world practice and social skills. They tend to be more confident and articulate, and they relate well to different age groups. My teenagers aren't used to just talking to teenagers. My teenagers are used to talking to everybody. Just recently, one of my teens had this wonderful conversation with an attorney who's also a musician. And you would have thought that these two knew each other forever, their entire life. They were really engaged. And when the conversation was over, the attorney said to my husband and I, it felt like I was talking to one of my peers. I mean, she really has a sense of herself. She understands politics. She understands what she's interested in. She's vested in the conversation. This was an amazing experience. Ultimately, a homeschooler social experience is completely dependent upon your family's social goal. For example, my family is definitely tilted towards the social butterfly. My husband is a major social butterfly. He thrives in social settings. Me, not at all. I find social settings to be very draining, but I wanted my children to develop good social skills. So I constantly put them in situations which they had to learn to socialize with others. Because whether they were extroverted or introverted, I wanted them to have those skills that I had to acquire later in life. And they are more difficult to develop later in life. So our goal was always to have kids that could be successful in a social setting. So it depends on your child's personality. In my case, I have 4 kids, 3 which are social butterflies, and 1 that seems to be more introverted. And the fact that she is introverted is not a problem. We still expect them to socialize to a certain degree and continue to develop their social skills because they will become adults. They will have to socialize in the workplace or in college or out in the real world. So it's good for them to have those skills. But she's never going to be as interested as her siblings in socializing. And that brings me to the third point. It's also going to be dependent on your child's need to socialize. I have one child that if she doesn't socialize regularly, and that means in an ideal world, it would be every day. In this COVID era, it means at least every other day. She's unhappy. I have another child that, once a week in this COVID era, she's okay. When we were socializing just about every day, that was okay too. Every once in a while, she'll say, you know what, can I skip this one? And I'll say, okay. Or I'll say, not this one, maybe tomorrow's or the day after, depending on what the opportunity was. And I have a child that doesn't want to at all. But guess what? That's not healthy. So we push it more. It's definitely not healthy in this pandemic, which we become so closed up. But even when this is over, there's different levels of need. And as they get older, we respect that more and more, especially if we feel that their social skills are pretty good. And it varies from child to child. But the bottom line is, don't worry about how well your homeschooler is going to be socialized, because there's abundant amount of opportunities. And even if you find an isolated area where there's not as many opportunities to socialize in person, you now have the internet, you have Zoom, you have all kinds of ways to meet up with different people in different areas. And you can even find those groups on Meetup or on Facebook. Well, they will only meet online, especially due to the pandemic right now. Go out there and explore and expose your child to this beautiful world that we have. Life can be overwhelming, but homeschooling doesn't have to be. If you found our show helpful and encouraging, please share a link in Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. If you have time, all 3. For links and resources, please visit our website. Till next time, enjoy your kiddos.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Homeschooling with Dr. B. Head over to homeschoolingwithdrb.com for more information and resources. That's homeschoolingwithdrb.com. Until next time.